What if you could become so psychologically invisible to toxic people that they forget you exist? What if you could sit in the same room as a narcissist, manipulator, or predator, and they would completely overlook you? Not because you're hiding, but because you've become strategically uninteresting. The basic gray rock method most people teach is amateur hour. It's obvious, ineffective, and often makes you a bigger target. What I'm about to show you is advanced psychological camouflage that works in every environment where toxic people operate. You think being boring means being rude or obviously distant. You think gray rock is about giving people the cold shoulder or acting like a robot. You're wrong. Advanced gray rock is about becoming so unremarkable that toxic people's attention slides right past you to more interesting targets. The person sitting across from you who's always stirring up drama, creating conflict, and feeding off other people's reactions, they're hunting for emotional supply. They need your anger, your fear, your confusion, your desperation. They feed on your reactions like a parasite feeds on blood. But what happens when there's nothing to feed on? Most people fail at gray rock because they make it obvious. They think being unresponsive means being cold, being uninteresting means being rude, being unavailable means being hostile. This isn't gray rock. This is painting a target on your back. Advanced gray rock is invisible. It's so subtle that the toxic person doesn't even realize they're being managed. They just gradually lose interest in you and move on to someone who provides better emotional nutrition. Here's what you need to understand. Toxic people are emotional predators. They have finely tuned radar for vulnerability, reactivity, and availability. They can sense who will give them the drama they crave, who will engage with their manipulation, who will provide the chaos they need to feel powerful. Your job is to become invisible to that radar. The first principle of advanced gray rock is emotional neutrality. This doesn't mean being emotionless. It means showing no strong emotions that can be exploited. You're not angry, excited, sad, or enthusiastic around them. You're just present but unremarkable. When they try to provoke you with criticism, you respond with, "I'll take that into consideration." When they share gossip to get a reaction, you say, "That's interesting." When they try to create drama, you offer, "I can see why you'd feel that way." These responses give them nothing to work with. No anger to escalate, no agreement to manipulate, no emotion to exploit. You become conversationally sterile. But here's where most people mess up. They think this means being the same way with everyone. Advanced gray rock is selective. You're only boring to people who would exploit your authentic self. With healthy people, you remain warm, engaged, and genuine. The second principle is information scarcity. Toxic people weaponize everything you tell them. Your struggles become ammunition. Your successes become targets for sabotage. Your plans become opportunities for interference. Advanced gray rock means you become informationally boring. When they ask about your weekend, you say, "It was fine, thanks." When they inquire about your relationships, you respond with, "Things are good." When they probe about your work, you offer, "Everything's going well." You're not lying. You're not being rude. You're just not providing the detailed information they need to create problems for you. The third principle is conversational minimalism. Your responses are brief, factual, and offer no hooks for further conversation. You don't ask follow-up questions. You don't elaborate on your answers. You don't provide the verbal ping pong they need to keep the interaction going. When they tell you about their latest drama, you don't ask for details. When they complain about someone else, you don't offer opinions. When they try to pull you into gossip, you don't engage. You become conversationally dead-ended. But here's the advanced technique most people never learn. You have to make this feel natural, not forced. The moment it feels like you're obviously trying to be uninteresting, you've failed. Advanced gray rock feels like you're just not that engaging of a person, not like you're actively trying to avoid engagement. The fourth principle is predictable uninteresting. You become so consistently unremarkable that toxic people stop paying attention to you. You're always fine, always busy, always neutral. There's never any drama, never any crisis, never any emotional volatility they can exploit. You become background noise in their emotional landscape. Now let's talk about context-specific applications, because gray rock looks different in different environments. In workplace settings, you maintain professional courtesy while being personally unavailable. You respond to work-related communications promptly and appropriately, but you don't engage in personal conversations, office gossip, or emotional discussions. When the toxic colleague tries to complain about management, you say, I prefer to focus on my work. When they attempt to create alliance against someone else, you respond with, I don't really have an opinion on that. When they try to involve you in drama, you offer, I'd rather stay out of workplace conflicts. You're not being antisocial, you're being professionally focused. There's a difference. In family situations, gray rock becomes more challenging because there's an expectation of emotional intimacy, but you can still protect yourself while maintaining basic family relationships. When the toxic family member tries to start an argument, you say, I can see we have different perspectives on this. When they attempt to guilt trip you, you respond with, I understand you're upset. When they try to create drama at family gatherings, you offer, let's try to keep things positive today. You're not being cold to your family, you're being selectively unavailable to the family member who exploits emotional access. In romantic relationships, gray rock is usually a temporary strategy while you plan your exit. You can't have a genuine, intimate relationship with someone you need to gray rock. If you're using gray rock with a romantic partner, that relationship is already over. You're just protecting yourself until you can safely leave. But here's where gray rock becomes truly advanced. Digital environments. Social media gray rock means posting generic, uncontroversial content. You don't share personal struggles, major achievements, or strong opinions. You don't engage with the toxic person's posts. You don't respond to their comments on your content. Text message gray rock means responding with minimal acknowledgments. Okay, got it, thanks. You don't use emojis, you don't ask questions, you don't provide emotional content they can manipulate. Email gray rock means keeping all communication brief, factual, and task-focused. You don't respond to emotional manipulation in emails. You don't engage with passive-aggressive content. You stick to the necessary information and nothing more. The most advanced gray rock technique is what I call emotional firewall. This is where you manage your internal emotional state while maintaining external neutrality. When they're trying to provoke you, you notice the provocation internally but don't show it externally. Your internal dialogue might be, they're trying to make me angry, but I won't give them that power. While externally, you remain calm and unresponsive. You use breathing techniques to stay physiologically regulated. You practice cognitive reframing to stay psychologically protected. You remind yourself that this is temporary protection, not permanent personality change. But here's what nobody tells you about advanced gray rock. It reveals who people really are. When you stop providing emotional reactions, you discover which relationships were based on genuine connection and which were based on your availability for exploitation. When you stop being emotionally available for drama, you learn which people actually care about you and which people only cared about what you could provide them. This revelation can be devastating. You might discover that relationships you thought were meaningful were actually just feeding systems. You might realize that people you trusted were only interested in you as long as you were useful to their emotional needs. But this revelation is also liberating, because once you see clearly who people really are, you can make informed decisions about who deserves access to your authentic self. Gray rock isn't about becoming a different person. It's about protecting your real self from people who would damage it. It's about being selectively authentic, warm and genuine with people who deserve it, strategically boring with people who would exploit it. The goal isn't to become permanently uninteresting. The goal is to become temporarily invisible to people who see your interesting qualities as opportunities for manipulation. But here's where gray rock becomes dangerous, when you start using it as a permanent way of being instead of a temporary protection strategy. Some people become so good at gray rock that they forget how to be authentic. They become so practiced at being uninteresting that they lose touch with what makes them interesting. They become so skilled at emotional neutrality that they struggle to access their genuine emotions. This is gray rock trauma. It's when the protection mechanism becomes a prison. It's when the temporary strategy becomes a permanent personality change. The antidote to gray rock trauma is selective authenticity. You practice being your full self with safe people while maintaining gray rock with unsafe people. You remember that boring is a costume you wear around toxic people, not your true identity. You have to actively cultivate relationships where you can remove the gray rock mask and be genuinely yourself. Otherwise, you risk losing yourself in the protection strategy. But here's the most advanced gray rock principle: knowing when it's not enough. Gray rock works for managing toxic people you can't avoid, but it's not a permanent solution for toxic people who have significant power over your life. If you're gray rocking your boss, your spouse, or your parent, you need an exit strategy, not just a management strategy. Gray rock is a bridge technique. It protects you while you build the resources, support, and plan you need to remove toxic people from your life entirely. The ultimate goal isn't to become so boring that toxic people ignore you. The ultimate goal is to build a life where toxic people don't have access to you at all. But until you reach that goal, advanced gray rock keeps you safe. Now, here's what most people never consider. What if the person you need to gray rock is yourself? What if you've internalized toxic patterns so deeply that you're your own worst emotional predator? What if you're the one creating drama, seeking conflict, and feeding off emotional chaos? What if you've become so addicted to intensity that peace feels boring, so accustomed to crisis that stability feels wrong, so used to emotional volatility that calm feels empty? What if you need to gray rock your own toxic patterns while you rebuild healthier ways of being? This is internal gray rock. It's where you become strategically uninteresting to your own destructive impulses. You stop feeding your addiction to drama. You stop engaging with your need for chaos. You become boring to the parts of yourself that thrive on emotional instability. You respond to your own provocative thoughts with the same neutrality you'd show a toxic person. When your mind tries to create problems that don't exist, you say, "That's interesting," and move on. When your emotions try to escalate situations unnecessarily, you offer, "I can see why I'd feel that way," and choose differently. You become gray rock to your own toxicity while remaining authentic to your healthy impulses. But here's the question that will determine whether gray rock actually protects you or just postpones the inevitable confrontation. What happens when gray rock stops working? Because it will stop working. Eventually, the toxic person will escalate. They'll try new tactics. They'll attempt different forms of manipulation. They'll reveal the full extent of their need for control over you. And that's when you'll discover whether you were using gray rock as protection or as avoidance. Whether you were buying time to build strength or just delaying the inevitable conflict. The person who's been trying to provoke you, manipulate you, and control you won't just accept your new boundaries quietly. They'll test them. They'll push against them. They'll try to break through your gray rock defense with increasingly aggressive tactics. Are you prepared for that escalation? Do you have support systems in place? Do you have legal protections if necessary? Do you have the psychological resources to maintain your boundaries when they're under attack? Because if you don't, gray rock becomes a temporary bandage on a problem that requires surgery. The silence you've created around yourself through gray rock, is it protecting your peace or is it hiding your fear?